RPMMORadio. I'll be your host, Ashton Phoenix, and with me, of course, is Sib.
Hello.
And Jazz.
Hello.
Hello, ladies. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. So, we're gonna apologize first off for the really shoddy beginning on that first episode. It'll take us a while to get the kinks out. We are now in what I'm going to deem the foam fort to keep my voice from carrying in our room to over to Sib's microphone so that I don't sound like I'm in a cave spelunking anymore. It's one of those things of a learning process, and we actually have a chimp over here doing what I couldn't figure out the first time, so thanks for coming, Bobo, and taking care of that.
Yeah.
So go ahead. I actually didn't put this in the thing, but you know what? Let's go ahead and what you guys been up to this week? We'll go with you, Jazz, first. Any role play or just any games in general? What you been doing?
Well, I usually play in non-roleplay games or games that I don't have a lot of roleplay in on Mondays and Tuesdays. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I have roleplay events in EQ2 that I participate in that pretty much suck up all of my free time. So that's what I do.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I work on the weekends, so I really don't get a chance to do much.
Well, anything good RP-wise? Anything interesting, cool?
It's been really kind of laid back lately because everybody's busy, and tavern events, I think people are just tired of them. So
they do get tiring after a little while.
They get tiring after a while, and there's not a lot of people left in EQ. The population is dipping, so there's less people around. So I have
Daybreak games. That's completely separate from what they're doing.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
No lies. Yeah. I'm so freaking mad at them. I can't see straight. I've tried very hard not to dwell on the fact that they're destroying their game on purpose. But all my roleplay is still in EQ for the most part. So when I am in ESO, I pretty much just roleplay with my friends if they're on, and otherwise just level right now. Yeah. So
that's cool. How about you, Sib? What you up to? Like I don't already know, but I still gotta ask you.
Really, I struggling to get to 60 on Final Fantasy. I haven't had a lot of role play. Of course, I've also got kiddos that are full in activities. So it's a lot of my time right now is trying to get through that. But I have done Final Fantasy this week, a little bit of Elder Scrolls, getting back into that one.
Yep, and the big thing, you're forgetting the big thing. What'd you get in Final Fantasy? What you were working towards all week so that you did get to 60.
Oh, I got a house.
Yes,
I got a house.
Oh, yay, nice.
Yeah, shout out to the Azorian Garden for their free company house. It lets us be able to get a room.
Oh, nice.
I've been working with the Adder company. What is that, Mike?
The Adders, Twin Adders.
Twin Adders. Yeah.
So. I remember that much.
Had to be level 50 at max rank, whichever. It's like first lieutenant or something.
That took me several days to get that taken care of. But I got it, so.
Yeah.
And I have a little place of my own.
Yeah, and I've been doing pretty much the same Final Fantasy. I'm unlike the ladies here. I'm really bad at doing more than one MMO at a time. I do not have altaholicism or multi-gameism when it comes to MMOs, at least. But other games, I'm Final Fantasy thing, and that's that one Resident Evil 7. I'm still playing through things like that. But in game, just been role playing with the guild in Final Fantasy here and there as a teacher in that one, and working my way through this main story quest, mostly trying to get ready for all the new stuff, which for Final Fantasy had a big one this weekend where they'll be announce more of what the expansion will be about, which is going from not just to Alamigo, but all the way over to the Far East in Doma in that area, surprisingly, which nobody really saw coming, which will be really cool because that's where my character's from, 10 years removed.
Nice.
But yeah, so that's cool. Just I figured, may as well give every 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a lot of time to go by role play, and I know Sib and I, our characters had their first, some of their first real dates, and we went to a Valentine's Day ball, which was very well done. They did a great job. The guild did putting that all together. And I really like that Final Fantasy lets your characters, when we went down there, they were all sync dancing, which is kind of a cool feature that not a lot of games allow you to do. You're usually either just standing staring at each other and emoting, or
right.
totally out of sync.
I'm hoping to get a lot more RPing in the next several days. We got a holiday, so I'm like, let's RP.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 4-day week and sort of, or is it 5-day? 5-day.
It's 5. Today. With today 5.
Yeah. So that'll be a lot of gaming time in. But so, all right. So role play. That's what we're all here for, isn't it, folks? You know, we'll go over the basics today. What we're gonna do is you know, starting how to do your character, how to make a backstory, what we've done, what seems to work, what doesn't seem to work. This will be mostly out of character, which is OOC, as opposed to EC, which is in character. And you know, it's mostly going to be a meta discussion, which is probably what most of our stuff is going to be about. You know, it's just kind of the way it has to go. We're not going to be live role playing on the air very often, unlike some people. We don't do that very well. I might be able to do a lot of different accents and voices.
You could.
Yeah.
You could. You could do great voices, but this is my voice right here.
Yeah.
That's it.
This is all I got. I just get laughed at when I try to make voices.
Well, thank you, ladies. I want to appreciate you saying such great things about me. It's fantastic. Really. Can you see it? Can you see the beast?
I can.
Hey, Sean, go back to where you came from.
Yeah.
Was that Sean Connery? Please say it was Sean Connery.
Oh, it's supposed to be.
Okay.
No. I was like, that was Sean Connery.
Please be that Sean Connery. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be careful with that one because that gets me in trouble too. Sean Connery's a dirty old man.
But so sexy.
At least when I
that's
do him.
okay.
Ash, thank you, love. I know you are. But what am I? Enough about what I think about me. What do you think about me? So
now you're just starting to sound like Ashen.
Yeah, pretty much. Just me. All right, so we'll go on to our main topic today, which is starting your character and how to make a backstory. Now, we're not talking... This is pretty much just for any MMO. We're not talking about, you know, butt sliders and nose cheek sliders and boob sliders and things like that. That's kind of an aesthetic you've got to figure out on your own, especially since every game does it different.
Yeah.
Unless you play Aeon, in which case, for the love of God, don't make the monstrosities that people can in that game because it's horrifying and not really RP. There are certain extents to which people can stretch their imagination, and the limbs that are monkey length and hands that are as big as your face.
I remember,
remember that
when I played that. I remember the weird things people were making. Yeah, it was really wild.
Yeah, it was really bad. But it's a fun game for a very short period of time. And then and then
around 40 it got grindy, and that was all it was for me.
Yeah, it's when the Asian roots start to set in for the Asian MMOs. Nothing against Asians. Your MMOs are terrible.
Yeah, it's... I don't understand the
them.
Grinding. I don't understand, because it's so easy to make a game so that that's not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And far too many games rely on the grinding thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, every game has some of it.
Yeah, it's indicative to MMOs as a genre. Just, I mean, EverQuest, the first one, I never reached max level in that one because it was, I think, 4 years playing that game. I think my highest character got to 67.
And then you have EQ2, really and I had like 12 max level characters. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's just more a sign of the times. But when it comes to those Asian MMOs, man, ever since I think Lineage was the first one I tried on that, and whew, man, they were rough. They were really rough.
Not my thing. And it's hard to roleplay. I've noticed that roleplay does really much better after your max. So
it's true, sad but true.
Because then you have time. And up until then, you're busy learning the characters, you're learning the lore, you're learning how to play the game, and you're less likely to spend time RPing.
Yeah, not to mention too.
Something about hitting that max level.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going through right now. My character in Final Fantasy, I think, is 56, and I'm like, please, let's just get to 60.
For the love of God!
Yeah, it's driving me nuts.
Yeah, although even in Final Fantasy, she's still story gated behind Heavensward, which she's not reached to yet either. So even when she hits 60, she still won't have access to, the entire expansion. But it's just the way that game runs. So
yep,
better than some, But so let's go ahead and there's a lot of different ways, it depends on the game. But one of the first things, one thing some people do, and we've done it, Jazz, for years. It's always something that's helpful. It's like a skeleton profile blank. It's something that's like, name, age, sex, description, characters, background, history, religion, philosophy.
Oh yeah.
Special powers, ability to travel, through time, sexual kink.
Yeah, it's most of them are patterned after D&D character blanks. But you're obviously doing more writing than you are rolling for most people.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, but most people.
Jess does that's one of those things we'll get to, but she does actually rolls dice, just like a D&D thing, for her different character abilities. I just, on the other hand, just kind of make it up. I always like to make a balanced character, but I don't let dice decide that. I just do it on my own. It's one of those places where we differ on character creations. But like with any character, you've got to have pluses and you've got to have minuses. If you create a perfect character, you're gonna be boring. Right out of the gate, never make your character is gonna be your main story character for you, but you have to remember you're in a world surrounded by other people that are the main story character for them. So that means you cannot create the super uber Neo of, you can't be the chosen one.
Because most MMOs are theme park where there is a hero and you are playing the hero as you play through the game, then it is really tempting, I think, particularly for new role players, to play that hero within their role play. And the problem is, of course, is that every single person playing the game is the hero, so you get left at.
And one of the, like, a good example of that is Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's one outside of like Final Fantasy. It's one of the MMOs best known for its amazing stories. Each class, I forget whatever expansion it was, has their own individual stories based on class. And one of the times, we were playing that still, someone that was playing the agent class, which, spoiler alert, I guess, if you have not played it in the last 4 or 5 years it's been out at this point, you're kind of out of luck. But the agents, they, through the class quest, they find out that their job, the SIS, I think it was, something like that, gets closed down. So he came in all huffy and puffy, and the role play area where the bar was is like, yeah, I'm out of a job now. It's it's like, well, how are you out of a job? Well, I work for the SIS and they're closed down. And
Lord.
No, they're not. Yeah, they are. It's like, well, kind of had to break everyone around him, just kind of broke out. It's like, listen, you can't actually do that because there's other people that have you. For one, thanks for spoiling that quest for people, jackass. I hadn't finished that far yet either, so that was a good way to spoiler alert. But you just can't. You could use bits and pieces of stuff like that, but you really shouldn't be focusing your character exactly on the narrative of the in-game stuff, because like I said, you can't. Not everybody can be the Warrior of Light, or back in the days of the MXO Matrix Online, can't be the Chosen One. You can't. You can't be the Jedi that single-handedly went up against the Emperor in Knights of the Old Republic and things like that. You just can't do that. Everybody can't do that same thing. Now, it's not to say you can't draw inspiration from like the side quests and things like that, or even as you learn the lore through that, you can adjust and carry on things and stuff like that. But I mean, is there anything really stopping you from doing it? No. But when you do RP as one of those people, don't get completely defensive and butthurt about it when everybody starts to call you out on it and people start to shift away from you because of that. It's just the way it's going to happen. It's unfortunate maybe, but like I said, there's, you're one person out of thousands, and that's just in role-playing. That's not to mention tens or hundreds of thousands, depending on the game, that's going to be that character. So it's one of those pitfalls that comes along with new role players typically. It's something the old-timers kind of learn not to do or to avoid. But a lot of time younger or newer role players, it's not anything wrong with them. It's just, you're not bad people, but you should feel bad.
No, you should not feel bad. It's just
bad. Okay. I take it back. You're not only a bad person. You're a terrible person. You shouldn't be playing anymore. No, I'm kidding. But you just don't know. Everyone was a newbie at one point or another. Nobody, Jazz and I remember starting out. I was like, well, that was dumb. I can't believe I thought that would be a good idea. But it's just an easy pitfall to get into. As Sib can attest to, when you're role playing and you're brand new at it. I mean, how nervous are you?
Super nervous.
Yeah.
I know me. I still get really kind of like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But you just kind of have to settle down and just go with it.
Yeah. So, we'll go. Got a little off topic there. Got a little ahead of ourselves. But the one good thing too is a list. Like I was saying, the pluses and minuses. Your characters. Giving them Jazz, like one thing a lot of her characters have is a phobia of the arachnid variety, which may or may not be inspired by real life events.
My own, yeah. But Miri, my newest character, is not.
Yeah, see?
And actually likes them. And that has been very weird for me because, as you know, I have arachnophobia. Mm-hmm. And so here's my character letting spiders crawl all over her. And it's really hard sometimes not to get the creepy crawlies when I'm playing her.
Have somebody come up behind you and, finger dance up your spine.
Yeah. My son has done that, and I told him, one of these days, boy, you're going to get backhanded, and it won't be my fault.
You have it coming. But yeah, it's just one of those, especially when you get into things with magical powers and stuff like that. It's not just fears and phobias, which I always do is, for the most part, my characters always hate halflings because they're horrible, and everybody that plays them is also horrible. So, it's just kind of...
I'm not.
What? Give me 10 examples.
10 examples.
Oh my gosh, what was the one in EQ2? The one that did the really cute little, was it a pancake dance? No, what was it? Demi.
Yeah, Demi's hilarious.
No, I remember it differently. There you go. She was a monster. She actually, what you guys didn't know was that Demi in her spare time actually hid under the beds of children and ate their feet. Yeah. How do you feel? Terrible, I hope.
Oh, heavens above.
So, but like I was saying, with magical stuff, you got to have pluses and minuses. You can't have your character, pulling the, it's going to actual Final Fantasy games, pulling the moon down on your head every single time. Probably not a good idea. People use that, but you have to have downsides. One thing I like with healers do. What do they always do? They're using their magic and it drains them. It's exhausting, just like running a marathon would be. A lot of times magic in lore and stuff like that, it comes with a price. It's either exhausting physically or mentally, or it drains the life force or something around them. How many different things like that.
I think that is like the hardest thing for role players that are new to learn, because when you're leveling your character doesn't have some of those issues when they're healing, for example, and you're sitting there and you're fighting a beast, you never get hurt, and this healer's throwing heals at you and everything's fine. Remembering that in a more real sense, everything has a plus and a minus, and you need to remember to do that when you're role-playing. Nothing's perfect, because one of the things that I learned when we were doing impromptu theater, our teacher said, remember that flaws are interesting.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very important thing that I learned back then, and I learned in D&D, was having flaws is actually nice. All of my characters have huge ones to balance out their play characters, because I often play characters that are very powerful, particularly in EQ2. And don't ask me how that happened. I don't know how that happened. Oh, yes, I do. I rolled Vodka out, and she rolled as a demon. And I was like, I can't play a character like that. And I was going to scrap her. Can you believe that? And start over, because I didn't like characters like that. And my husband was like, chicken. And I was like, what? And he was like, you're chicken. You can't do that. And I was like, I can do anything I set my mind to. And he says, well, then role play her out. See what happens.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I created, the best role play I've ever had in my life with that character.
Good for Triton. That's the name we're going to go with. That's the only real name I know him as. Is that good, Triton?
Yeah.
Triton is fine. Okay. Yeah, I think most people call him Triton even now when they meet him in person.
Doesn't matter what he does.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of those things. It's just like you said, flaws are interesting. Even I've had the problem where I don't purposely go, contrary to what it may sound like. I actually, when I'm role playing, I like to include everybody to the best of my ability. I don't want to exclude everybody, but part of the problem that comes with that then is that you start to shift and turn so that somebody your character probably shouldn't like, because you don't want to upset them through the role play. You kind of like, oh, okay, well, I don't really like that, but you kind of shift the character's perspective. So,
I call that sanitizing.
Yeah.
And it's really hard not to do, because, you want to get along with everybody. And like Vaka, you remember her, she was a pain in the ass. And she was racist, and she was obnoxious. And people would take it personally.
See, and that's where
I had to mellow her.
Mix. You have to let it go. And if that happens, it's one of those things. If it happens, we got to learn to move past it or point it out. But you can't let it affect you, even though, like I just said, it does.
It does affect you. It's hard when somebody dislikes you because of your character and takes it OC. Mm-hmm. And it can. One of the things I think that it's really important to stress to people about this is not only because that line is sacrosanct, like actors, you're not your character.
Right.
But it's also, you're creating stress to everyone around you when you do it, not just you. I mean, and it's stressing you out too. You may not realize it, but you're stressing yourself out by getting upset about roleplay.
It can be mentally exhausting, yeah.
Yeah, and you're mentally exhausting everyone around you. I, had to leave running my guild and leave EQ for 2 years because I burned out because of the constant drain of people who could not separate.
Yeah.
And
kitty.
My arm kitty wants in the... hold on a sec. I'm going to mute.
Broadcast cat. Get your act together. Come on now. Damn. But so take up where she was leaving off. Yeah, that's fantastic. Fortunately for us, our cats are mute and stupid, so we don't have to worry about that. Also, they're not very friendly when it comes to jumping up on stuff. But yeah, what like she was saying, it's just one of those things. You've got to build those bad things in there. You've got to, because you there's two kinds of conflict that you want from your character to create, or there's one kind rather out of the two. One of them is the conflict that presses the story. It's okay to have conflict in roleplay. Without it, it's basically just bar tavern scenes of everybody sitting around emoting / takes a drink and nods in agreement over and over and over again. I have always, outside of, dueling and stuff, I always enjoy getting into in-game political debates, not real life ones, but the politics of the game world itself is always so much fun. Or a theological debate over the gods or goddesses or this or that. And with somebody whose character is super passionate about it, But then you've always got the one guy who's like, I'm an atheist. Yeah, we get it. You're boring. Nobody cares. Can you bring more to it? Why you don't believe? How are you an atheist when you literally 2 minutes ago were staring at the god? Really?
Yeah.
Still an atheist?
I think that's an important point to get people to understand. I had trouble with that sometimes too with people because they would say that and it's like, you can't actually be an atheist. You can be someone who doesn't give homage to the gods or feels that you don't owe them anything and so you want nothing to do with them, but that's not really an atheist because in these games, the gods are real. It's not an issue of believing in them.
Like EverQuest. There was an old event back in EverQuest 1. It's like, there's Tunar, and she's fighting Thule in Lower Fae. You can't be an atheist anymore. They're literally right there fighting each other in front of you, and the story is going all over the world. So maybe you're not really,
And I think it's just people don't have the language to explain sometimes what they mean by atheist, but a lot of times also people put a large portion of themselves into their characters, which of course, as we know,
if you are an atheist, you're a godless animal. That's fine. That's okay. I'm sorry, I said that loud. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you said that out loud, dude.
Damn, I didn't mean for the heathens to hear me.
I'm a heathen. Remember that.
Shit. It's okay.
No, I think he was
heathens
referring
don't
to
remember
me.
anything. But so going back on where we were to the negatives, the plus minuses. Sometimes too, another thing that helps. It's one thing I do is you draw inspiration from something you like. Now I'm not saying you should be.
I hate my cat so much.
He knows you.
He can throw his voice. It's spooky. I will be. He sounds like he's in the room, doesn't he?
Bit,
He's behind a door. I don't know how he does it. I'll be right back.
Okay. But another thing is to, like I said, draw inspiration from TVs, books, film. It's something I've always done in a lot of ways. Like one of my first characters that really took off in EQ2 was Xanis, and his last name was Sulegna, which was basically Angelus backwards. And a lot of the personality traits and some of the history stuff that I went with was from Angel from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He used to be a really bad guy. Something flipped his switch and turned him into a decent person, and turned his emotions on because he was a dark elf. And from there on out, he was always trying to make up for all the evils he had done when he didn't really know better or didn't care. And
this is so sad because I'm just now drawing a blank of who my character I'm like, I don't know who it was.
The one you did most recently was what's her Luna Lovegood off of the Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of made her loopy and silly.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as silly as Luna, although you did it first, but you kind of toned it back a little bit.
Yeah, but I like having one that's not so serious.
Yeah.
My E2Q character was pretty serious.
Yeah, she had but even then, a lot of times, one thing I've always noticed you do, you don't make characters like Jazz and I do. Yours they're basically just normal people. You almost never you never give yourself so far special powers or abilities of any kind. They can barely touch or use magic,
Oh, that's a real good one. Going back to EQ2 with Juan, that was funny because she was a healer class, and how many people were like, I need you to heal me, and I'm like, I'm not RPing a healer.
Yeah, it's playing the class, but it's they use that out of character knowledge as though but even in Star Wars, you played a smuggler.
Yeah,
didn't play a Jedi. It's just something that you always like to do, but and there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it helps me not to get into the I'm so awesome thing. I'm just an average person. And that way it keeps me kind of grounded. Because I know I've never played a character that has a lot of powers, and I don't want to get into my character's so powerful, you can't beat me. I don't want to go that far. So
well, I am, and it's
I kind of stay
perfectly
grounded.
Well, it also helps if you play, at least for me, I've always been almost obsessed with the idea that even if you make a character that's, amazing, they have built-in weaknesses that make them, like, my characters are basically demons, but they're easily killed. They just are hard to stay dead. Yeah. But they're still just like any other person. They can be taken down. They can be killed if you know how to do it.
Yeah, be it elemental or something like that is usually what you use.
I like the elementals. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I always try to make my characters flawed and easily killed if you know how. And I've even, as you know, that one, I don't know if you remember that I almost had to kill off one of my main characters because she almost died.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to, and my guild rebelled and said I couldn't actually kill her. So I was good. They were like, absolutely not. And I'm like, well, she's technically dead right now.
Clear.
Yeah. They made me come up with a way that she was still alive. Toyana, you remember?
Yeah.
Died.
Yeah.
Died. And I was going to delete her. And nope. So.
Yeah. But, what, like I was saying, with the films and stuff, another thing recently one of the things I've pulled from was Timothy Olyphant's character, Raylan Givens, Justified. It was kind of a country cowboy thing. And one thing that's also great for that sort of stuff is to make your character distinct when you're going through the background is especially if you're a comic book reader, you're very familiar with how you can type and write out accents, be it Southern or, Dorvish. If you're going to do it like that, you got to kind of put that lot of apostrophes and things like that in it, And
Triton did that because he always had that accent that I just couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of those. It gives your character a special thing. Now I will say there is going too far with it, which I've seen some people do the Scottish accent like it's like downtown Scotland. It's so hard to even read. It's like you can't decide.
Yeah, it's impossible to read, and when it gets that bad, you need to stop.
Yeah, you need a Rosetta Stone in the actual program of Rosetta Stone in hand to decipher what they're saying. But it's just one of those nice little. Not everybody does it, and you don't have to. Using proper English and things like that is perfectly acceptable. I do it. I've done it plenty of times. In fact, I've only had a few characters that had accents and things like that. But it does add something nice to it.
I can't do accents in real life, and I can't type out accents. It's awful. So I just will stick with normal talk.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I learned doing it through reading comic books, X-Men and things like that. I learned how to do the Southern, how to type Southern basically through Rogue, and I could actually type out Cajun through Gambit, Remy LeBeau. There's just little punctuations and things like that. If you can sound it out in your head, you can usually type it out. But it also does help to be able to, sound it out in your head, Sherry. That kind of thing. But, so let's see here. Believe it or not, just before we continue on, I know it's only our second episode, but you guys won't believe this. We actually have an advertisement. Can you believe it? Someone's actually paying for us to speak about their product on this horrible, horrible podcast that we've got here. This time with only 50% of the echoes of the previous episode.
I think we're doing better than 50, but let's hear it.
All right, so this will be from Bargnar's Ogre Rhines, I believe, and I'll go ahead and pass it over. He's one of those. It's like a car dealership thing. You know how they are always like to do their own commercials. It's probably not going to be very good, but he's a dwarf, so you tell him no. See if your head's not dented in at the end of the day. So, all right, go ahead and take it, Bargnar. This episode is brought to you by Bargnar's Ogre Rains. Need a salty, fat-filled, artery-clogging snack after a long day of slaying kobolds at the entrance of the deep mines? Of course you do! You lily-livered Nancy Pants. Only one brand of rind uses real ogres, and that's Bargnar's Ogre Rains. Great for eating around a campfire fueled by the bodies of your fallen foes, or at the goblin head-kicking match. It's a goal, you stupid bastards. So, go out now, get yourself a crate, and if you don't like it, actually, feck off. Nobody gives a shite. Bargnar's Ogre Rains. Put a little ogre in you. New flavors coming soon, as I can kill them. So,
Thanks, Bargnar.
Yeah, that was horrifying in multiple senses. Alright, so back on topic after, hold on, they actually sent us some, okay, yeah, so I got some free pork ogre rinds, and, yeah, they're greasy. They're very, very greasy. I'm pretty sure that was an ear. Yeah, okay. I'll wash that one down.
You're the only brave one to try them.
That is super salty.
I gotta ask, how's it feel to have a little ogre in you?
So many bad things I can say about it.
What?
Nothing.
What? How did you mean that, Jess? No, go ahead. Continue. For the children in the audience, she's gonna make a dick joke.
Nope. No, I'm not going there.
What? No,
I'm gonna be good.
It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Alright, so carrying on, another really great thing to when you're making your character that you really, it's not necessarily something you have to know right out of the gate, but it is something that you, if you really gonna get deep into role play in a game, if you're gonna be doing it for more than a month or two, and you want to stick with it for months or years to come, you gotta fucking learn the lore. Just hands down, you've got to learn the lore. Even if by going through the stories, maybe watching some videos online. If there's, Final Fantasy has a lot of great lore masters. Ethis Asher's one of them. You can watch some of his videos to, give yourself half hour, and you're pretty much caught up on the majority of the lore and things like that. But without that, you end up tripping over yourself. One thing, going back to, again, we're going to go back to this a lot because it's what we know best, but EQ2, they had two separate calamities in that game. One of them was the Rending, which was like 150 years before the game started, which was an upheaval of earthquakes that literally reshaped from what it looked like in EQ1 to EQ2, being a bunch of floating islands and continents and things like that, to the Shattering, which was 15 years before the game started, and was just one of the hidden moons, Lucklin, exploding and, showering down, which was equally horrible. But people constantly, they would base their character stories around one or the other, and they would get them wrong all the time. They'd be like, yeah, I remember 15 years ago when the Rending, an earthquake shattered the world. It's like, yeah, that was, no, you're fucked.
Or they'll be like, 1,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, no.
Yeah. Back in the golden age of tech.
You okay?
Man, that ogre rind is really strong. Take it away, Jazz.
Yeah, that has always been when people get the timeline wrong or they get the lore grossly wrong. And one of the things that I had as a rule for people that worked within my guild was don't interrupt them. Don't put it out into say, just send them a quiet tale after they're done and say, look, This is actually what happened. Yeah. But yeah, it's important to know the lore because it helps build a better story within the world.
Yeah, it lets you know, and it can help you find out where your character may be from, what cities or city-state or area, if you're like in ESO, if you're... Sorry, that Roger Rand really, really got me. It was, yeah, I'm going to hope that was just the end of a finger.
Well, I know being new to the lore thing,
Mm-hmm.
Create your character, go in and ask.
Yes.
I know, like Ashen and Jazz, they know so much, and a lot of people that play in RP do. They have researched the lore, and if you're questioning it, what your background is, ask. Say, hey, this is what I've got in mind,
Mm-hmm.
and does it sound, good, or does it work? And they'll tell you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I bounce ideas off Ashen. I'm like, hey, does this fit?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, it works.
Yeah, and if it does, I'll let you know.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've had perfect strangers, people I don't know except in passing in the roleplay world and in Q2, ask me questions because they know that I know the lore, and they'll be like, okay, this is what I want to do. Is that possible? And we'll have to discuss how it's possible, or if it's possible, or what would work better. And I think that a lot of people just are too embarrassed to ask or shy.
Yeah,
and
never be that embarrassed. They're
because there's always going to be some jerk that'll be like, ha ha, you don't know. But most role players that I've known, even the ones that I don't even really like very much, will help new role players because we all know that this is part of a community, and you have to help the new people or the community doesn't grow.
Right.
So,
yeah,
exactly.
In when it comes to EverQuest or even Final Fantasy, I've got to the point in that now where I know Eorzea very well. Not as good as Norath or, say the Star Wars
He ordered a book.
I did order. I have the Encyclopedia Eorzea right here in front of me. And I have definitely skimmed through a lot of that in the parts I want.
He ordered a book.
I ordered a book. Hey, it's not my fault. I wish other games would actually have a big lore book like that. Of course, it took them 3 years to get it out, but still, better late than never. But, it's just, most people, it's kind of like anything. If somebody knows a thing, they're more than happy to talk to you about it or to impress you with their knowledge. Very rarely are you going to come across that asshole that's like, nah, I don't got time for that.
And it's always a good idea, too, to check with more than one person because sometimes you get people who, for whatever reason, mix up game lore with story lore or guild lore or personal story lore and have kind of written their own lore that's in direct violation with actual game lore, which is what happened to me when I first started playing EQ. So it's important to ask more than one person to make sure. Unless you're absolutely sure. I know that Ashen knows so much. So I could ask him a question and completely trust. But if I was just asking someone I didn't know, I would definitely check more than one, sir. Because it's really easy to, like I did when I first started playing the game and I didn't know the lore yet. And I came up with a story for my character that didn't really fit. And I had to change everything.
What was that?
Well, originally I had made her as a demon. That's how I rolled her as, which doesn't really fit into EQ lore as well as other things. And I eventually, with the help of a couple people, make it fit better.
Yeah, went with
and
that
changed her story.
Yeah.
So by the time I met you, so she was a hybrid, and she'd been kind of put together in a lab and experimented on, which made her the weird thing that she was. So it fit better with what was going on. But I had to swallow my pride and, ask, what do you mean it doesn't work? And have them explain it to me.
Yeah, I thought it was a bold move, too, for you to make her basically 3 circus midgets just stacked up on top of each other. It was a surprise once I got to really know you. But it's a bold move.
It was hard. And, I even went and got EQ1 and went and played EQ1 in Neriac. I played a Dark Elf and did all the quests in Neriac in EQ1 so that I could learn the lore.
And with your sense of direction, how many years did that take?
It took me about 4 months. It took a long time. But I did eventually get all the lore because you just kept getting lost until I found all the quests. So, it worked.
Oh, man. I actually... I won't go too far into it. There's a reason I ended up my first character was a dark elf, and I ended up with a half elf in EverQuest 1 back when I first played it. It wasn't because I really enjoyed being a dark elf or hated it. It's because I couldn't find my way out of Neriak after
That's
hours.
hilarious.
So, but yeah,
that was one of the confusing cities.
Oh, and it's in EQ1. It was so much
still get
worse.
Lost. Oh, was it? I see.
Because it was.
Horrible.
For one, it was
horrible.
It was like Wolfenstein 3D graphics at the time, and they were so close together. Yeah, it was. The corridors were It was very cramped, very, very D&D, and what's his face's world with Drizzt. Menzo Baranzan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very cramped, like those stories make it out to be. They really, and it was.
Well, they nailed the whole cave city thing, but it was like a maze, and I just kind of wandered around lost forever.
But so yeah, making things fit in the lore, ask questions. Another really good thing to do when you think about making your character, don't go too detailed. I know it sounds counterproductive. But, until you've learned the lore and everything like that, don't make it so tight-knit that you can do, we've seen it time and again, that you write yourself into a corner. Keep it kind of loose, keep it light, otherwise you will box yourself in. And one of the ways I do it is I come up with a general idea, where they came from, how they got to where they are in the point of the game where I'm starting to play, and as RP happens, you fill in the blanks kind of as you go. You've got the outline, but you'll fill in the details as you learn the lore and as you need to, and through conversations and through roleplay itself.
Yeah, exactly.
As just knowing that really, really gets you going. Because if somebody's like, hey, where are you from? You can at least give them a general sense. Like, say for Final Fantasy, my character's from Doma. Although he doesn't talk about it, he'll tell them like, I know that, but he'll tell them he's from Limsa Luminsa, which is technically true because that's where he's living right now. So but it's not a full truth. But I don't have to go into like, oh yeah, I came over here 10 years ago running from the Empire, and then unfortunately, not only 5 years later, a giant dragon blew out of a moon and killed the family that I brought here to protect. You don't have to actually spout that out the first time you meet somebody. You can just say, I'm so Lisa. I don't meet people out on the street and be like, hi, I'm, Ashford Phoenix. So I've lost my dad, and my grandfather died of cancer. It was horrible. Really, really horrible. So how are you doing today? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. Certain things in games, just like in real life, you gotta ease into that. If a conversation goes towards tragic events and things like that, talking about it, for example, real life, if somebody gets on something tragic like, I don't know, the Holocaust or 9/11 or something like, you might talk about it then, but you don't start with that. You don't go with the, yeah, I remember when Bahamut blew out of the moon and killed everybody. You work up to those kinds of things. So having that loose outline kind of lets you fill in the blanks with some easier stuff. Hey, yeah, I'm from Limsa Luminsa. I do guard duty for caravans, things like that. If you do it too tightly too, we've seen it. Jazz definitely, I know she has, and we've seen people actually leave games and leave roleplay because they've made their backstory so tight that when certain things come up, it cripples them. Like, just in either the person isn't willing or isn't able to write themselves out of the box that they've put themselves in. They can't draw a window on it and look beyond that anymore. And it's kind of sucks too, because we've lost some really good role players, I think, through stuff like that.
Yeah, it is, and it's tempting when you roll your character to have their whole history thought out and their whole plan of attack and how they are and who they are. Even I did that in my earlier, particularly in D&D. And it really is, then you get to the point where you can't let your role play shape your character.
Yeah.
And then your role play dies. Yeah. So it's really important to keep it really general. I know when I played AOC, after playing the game for about a month and a half. Yes, sorry, Age of Conan. I didn't role play at first. I just played the game. Plus, it was the PvP RP server, so I was really getting post-traumatic stress disorder while I was learning how to play the king.
Every guy that comes around the corner, is he gonna kill me? No. Oh, okay. Oh, nope. Yep, he did.
For years afterwards, I couldn't harvest without twitching. It was just, that game did something to me. But anyway, the point being that by the time I figured out what I wanted her to do, I really did kind of borrow from the story of the game in the sense that she had amnesia, didn't know who she was. Just because the lore was so intense and I hadn't read a Conan book since I was, 7, I really didn't know the lore really well. And decided to go that route because in the game, it wasn't just one person that was having this happen. There were ships crashing all the time, all over the place. So you'd see the slave ships everywhere.
Crashing.
Yeah. So it made sense. So I just went ahead and went with it. And then my character kind of grew into her role play as I played her, and she ended up being a fantastic character. But by keeping it really blank, I think I realized I had made the error that a lot of people make when they make characters on some of my other characters. I just had too much there. Mm-hmm. So that is really important to just leave just enough to identify your character and then just jump in.
Oh, did we lose Jess?
Am I here?
Oh, there you are.
You're here.
Where did I go away?
Go ahead.
What did I say last?
You were we're all like you go.
What?
No,
dead air.
It's the dumbest game of telephone where wires are completely out. No, you were just saying about how you had you realized you had overcomplicated her to the point of crippling her. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I made with this character, I didn't do that, and I had so much fun. And after that, I kept things pretty simple when I made a character, and I was always much happier for it.
Yeah. And one other thing, too, and these last two, we got two other things here to get to. I know we're coming close to our usual time, but we may run a little over on this one, which is fine as long as the ladies are willing to stay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm good.
The last two kind of tie into each other, and that's not being so tragic, like I said before, that your literally character is crippled and they can't move forward, but that's the only, just like in real life, tragedy happens to everybody. It sucks. And some people do get completely crippled from it. They're called crazy people, and they end up not being part of society after a while. Sorry. No, just kidding. But, you even with deaths of major families, you've seen people move on. It doesn't engulf every aspect of your life. So if you can't make something so tragic that's the first and only aspect of your character, you can't make tragedy all that there is in that character's life, and along with that, because it ends up being tragic, is not tying your character when you create them. And actually this is what, now thinking of it, I say that now, but even later on when you've got an established character, don't tie your character so tightly to another player character, another RPer, that if they leave, you're completely boned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've seen it a lot of times where somebody will, their character, Jazz, have you done, it seems like you've had characters that were, all
far too many to count,
that are so tied in with the love interest that they have that when that person inevitably, and it happens, either gets bored with the game or moves on or, can't afford to play, whatever, everyone's got different circumstances.
Things happen.
Yeah. That your character is then left holding, the basket with kind of the WTF over their head, well, shit, their fates and fortunes were so intertwined. Without that character, cannot figure out a way that it wouldn't cripple them to carry on, you know, to the point where they'd be like suicidal.
Yeah, and I only did that once, and I recovered from it.
Mm-hmm. I think
and now
I can't.
That would have been Toyana.
Yeah,
that would have been Toyana.
I remember you and I had a long conversation with that too, trying to, like, okay, well, what if we do this to get her, you know, like if we had to bring Xanis in to help her get over things and to move on from it. You know, it was...
And you helped me to do that, and I've always been really appreciative because her story became so much more after that. I'm glad that somebody was there to talk me out of just ending her entire role play because of what had happened. And I think that's really important because, like, Vakarina, who's one of my major characters, you know, was married to your character, and your character died. And this was this...
Because I got tired of the game, after years.
And so... Still. You know, and that was her second husband to die.
Black Widow.
So, she's Black Widow. But I went through where I probably played a lot of alts for a little while, let her grieve and go through that because I don't enjoy that kind of role play. But I let her kind of wander around in black for a little while. And then she got over it and she moved on. And I learned from the Toyana incident that I would never do that. And I've had it happen since with various characters in various games where the person that is my playing partner or the person that is my leveling partner leaves. And I have to scramble because we created the role play together and now that person is no longer here.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because I've seen a lot of people go, well, I'm just done playing. And you can't really convince them otherwise, but you really need to just push through it. Or, like I did with one of my characters when her husband left the game, and he was an integral part of her life, Lamjin, we just had him remain. Yeah. they're still married. He's still in the background. He just doesn't play anymore.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where you have to, you know, it's just, you've got to make sure you don't do it so tightly that either you know, and sometimes you never know that the person be like, no, you can't kill them off, which is always the easy way out. Well, they're dead. You can move on. But when they're just floating out there in the unknown ether, or you couldn't get, you know, you don't ever want to be like, okay, I know we were intricately done, but I'm going to go ahead, since he's not around, I'm just going to pretend that his character got killed off. You can't really do that without their permission, because it is their character. But it's just one of those things that if you tie yourself, it's always great to have a roleplay partner. You know, I love every time Yuri's her name in the game, but Sib and I get a chance to roleplay. No matter what game we're playing, it's awesome. Same with Jazz. I love being able to RP with Jazz, even though we're kind of in separate games right now. When it comes up, which sucks because you know you chose wrong. But I like ESO. It's only got 8.5 million subscribers according to their statistics. Whatever.
Move on.
It happens, you know. And,
this topic is not for me because I came in playing with Ashen, and so I've always, unless he divorces me, he's always going to be there. So
that's
this
true.
is one of those things I'm not very good help with.
Yeah, well, and it's you know, that's a couples thing, which, you know, when you know that, you know, is probably never going to happen. But even that still can come up because, you know, we may not always be playing the same ago. Like right now, you also are playing ESO, which I actually have no interest whatsoever in playing. I'm having so much fun in Final Fantasy. Maybe that will change in the future, but ESO, just, you know, as much fun of it is as a game, it's just not a roleplay environment I care to get into right now. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those that do. You know, it's just one of those things that, for me personally, it's kind of like World of Warcraft. I've played it. It's a perfectly great game. The numbers would certainly coincide that it's a really great game. It's just not one for me. You know, I don't have to completely bash on the game that you enjoy to make myself feel better about it. I just don't enjoy it. That said, you're stupid and you're wrong.
Anyway, the point is that not to tie yourself so tightly to a character that you can't move on if they do.
Yeah.
And that is really hard to do. And as Sib has said, with her, because she's married to the person that she role plays with, so it's a little different. But the same thing applies in the sense that, like, my husband and I rarely RP together.
Or your characters almost never connected beyond maybe being friends.
Right, because, when I was running the guild in EQ2 as Valkyrina, Triton was her right-hand man. And he was the commander, but we were not connected in anything other than, casual fun.
That's how I managed to slip in there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And people did not realize, probably the first couple of years that I played EQ, that Triton was actually my real-life husband. So that was a bit of a shock when, I think it was when you and your character and Vaka got together and people said something, or Triton had said something to someone, and they're like, wait, what? Wait, you know her in real life? He's like, yeah, I'm married to her in real life. I know her real well. Wink.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more.
He goes, but you're not with Valkyrina. And he's like, I know, right?
Yeah. Well, and Circe in chat brings up a really good point, but what if you like being tied tightly together?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it per se, but you are setting yourself...
A relationship-wise.
Well...
I'm pretty sure there's roles involved in how she means it.
Oh, well, that's fun too.
This is a whole other episode.
That's a whole different episode and a whole new topic.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
I mean, I know some people who do this all the time, who tie their characters, and if the person leaves or stops playing the game, they just kill off their characters and move on. And if that's your thing, that's fine. I think we're just saying that in order to keep your role play moving and active, it's best to not ever tie yourself so tightly to someone that you don't want to play anymore just because they're gone.
Right.
Or that your character is going to be sad. So, you can either roll a sociopath or you can just accept that they're going to be a little upset for a while and then move on.
I like the sociopath option.
Well, I certainly have one. That Miri definitely qualifies as a sociopath, so I don't have to worry about that. But I don't know. I think that in order to keep RP moving and fun and fluid, at least in my opinion, you can't get so tied to someone that you can't move on if they leave.
Yeah. You've got to make the character, part of you. And that being said, there's actually something we didn't even put on there. How much of you do you pour into a character?
Well, all of my characters are a little bit of me. There's something about them that I identify with, which is why I enjoy playing them. But it could also be just as much like Elamshin has absolutely nothing in common with me. She's frilly and girly and does her nails and her hair, and she's very vain and very self-absorbed. And
wait, you said she was nothing like you. You just said self-absorbed.
Ha 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 ha! You're hilarious. Anyway, she's nothing like me, but I enjoy playing Elamshin because I get to be someone I never was.
Yeah,
and I get to explore that.
Yeah, you're not exactly you were never, even growing up as I've gotten to know you, you were never one of the dainty little princess ladies.
No, I was the girl out there with the guns slogging through the mud.
Yeah.
On your knees,
yeah.
Right. I was a tomboy and I could care less about my hair. I only, as I got older, I think I finally was like, what do I do with this mess? But until that point, I didn't even notice.
Yeah. And it's just, and that comes into... If you make your character too much you, I mean, obviously it's a character that you're playing. There's going to be aspects of it. Mine, obviously, usually tend to go with heavy sarcasm because I can't help myself.
No, he can't. He really can't.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
it's like breathing.
Language.
You have to be sarcasm.
But if you've made your character too much, if you've put too much of yourself, too much of your personality traits, too much of you personally, if you're just playing you as you are through an online avatar or in a character, that's when the aspects of mixing and getting really upset when somebody insults your character comes, because you've made it so much like you, they're technically insulting you at that point, and it's really hard to separate that out. And I've definitely done that. I've definitely insulted those people before because I was just insulting the character because he was being a tool or a dipshit, or I was just... my character was being a tool or a dipshit and making fun of
my character is a witch. Yeah. She's just a brassy bold, bitchy person. And I play her like any teenager, and she's kind of a mean girl, and that's just how she is. There's also the aspect also that I think a lot of people miss when they're making a character as a warning flag is not necessarily making it who you are, but you make it who you want to be.
Yes.
That's still investing more of yourself than you really should, because again, you've got this idea in your head of what this person is, and the minute that somebody insults them, they're insulting you. So it's right back into that. Don't invest so much of yourself into your character, however you want to look at it, that character then becomes you, because then separating is impossible.
It gets
and it's perfectly natural, because if this is you, or this is who you want to be, then it's easy to go, wait a minute.
yeah, it definitely, and that's just it's one of those pitfalls you just typically want to avoid, it's just it gets dangerous real quick, and you're gonna ruin your own experience, and you're gonna kind of drag down people around you, because it's gonna, nobody's okay. I can't say nobody. Typically, most people aren't out just to piss off other people.
I was gonna say you probably should change that phrase.
But for the most part, people are who they are. There's good people, there's bad people.
Also, characters are who characters are.
Yeah.
Your character is who you create, and if that character pisses off another character, it's the game.
Yeah.
It's not the people outside the game getting pissed off. It's the characters.
Yeah.
You can't take that other step and let somebody else's character piss the person off.
Yeah. One example, and and if you want to play, then that's one thing I have to give props for. People that go in purposely to play villainous characters, without just being, which we'll go into that in a later episode, being a villain does not just equate to being a jerk. That's not a villain, that's just being a jerk. But people that play villainous characters, you've got to be ready that the people around you, some of them will probably mix, which, you just have to ignore those people. But
we really should do like a whole episode on playing evil and what it means and how to do it well and how to not do it.
It's definitely, it's on the books for one of the many aspects of, along with playing a good character and all that stuff.
Yes, and how to play a good character without annoying everyone around you.
Create a character that's going to kind of be villainous. And like I said, we'll go into more detail that you've got to make sure that your skin is thick enough that you can take when all the other characters around you are mocking you or egging you on and things like that.
And we cannot talk about this without mentioning one perfect character.
Oh, thank you. Go on. Go tell.
You're not an evil character. Tilder.
Oh, Tilder. Yeah, I guess that guy's all right.
Who plays this horrible person and is a really nice guy. But
he plays nice guy and a great family guy too. But he plays an amazing vampire. He plays a real vampire that is just and along with all the and that's another thing that we, as you may notice, we have a lot of episodes planned on how to and how not to probably try to do certain things. One of those would be how to sparkly was your vampire.
Oh, I don't know if we can do that episode because I'll just start swearing.
That'll be a not safe for work warning in the front of it. But his character and my character, speaking of Tilder, we were polar opposites. I mean, we were water and oil. We were, two poles of the same magnet trying to beat into each other. Wow, that sounds awful.
And Rengots.
And Rengots
as well.
But,
the three of your character and those two, constantly.
We all hated each other in character. Out of character, love those guys. They're amazing guys. I've gotten to know them over years, and they're fantastic. But in character, man, the fights we would get into were epically fun. And that was the thing. It was fun. And that's what this all comes down to, is you've got to make a character for yourself that's fun, whether that's evil, whether that's bad. Evil characters can get along with things too. Again, I'm getting off track there. But you just got to make something that you are comfortable with, that you could play for hours on end, and come out the other end, not even if it's an exhausting role play, which can be tiring. I know it sounds silly to say, oh, you're so tired at the end of this, but I'm just sitting there typing. But it's a mental exercise, basically.
Yeah.
You're being creative with multiple people at the same time. Ask a writer who sits down at the computer for 4 or 5 hours at a time every day and pounds out their novel. If they're not exhausted by the end of it, they're probably not going to.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I'm fine. I'm ready to go. Jog for 12 miles now.
Now when you play an evil or intense character, and I should say one of each because not necessarily intense characters are not necessarily evil, but right. Intense characters that are played well, that are three-dimensional and take a lot of your own thought to play, are exhausting. Mm-hmm. And it's important, I think, and we'll address that in another episode, to remember to take a break. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to maybe not play that character every single day because you are out.
Yeah, and that's another aspect, and we're going to get into a lot of that stuff, how that stuff can affect you in your real life. I think we're pretty good on wrapping up. Is there anything else anybody thinks on creating a character that might be worth either repeating and focusing on, or that you thought of while we were talking?
I just would say lore. Learn the lore, because that'll make it a lot easier for you to get into the game, enjoy the game, and enjoy your character.
And you really can't say enough about the lore is there in the games, and if that means maxing out your character before you start role playing so that you're comfortable, that's cool. Yep. Mm-hmm. Do whatever you have to do to learn the lore in the game, whether it's by a book like our nerdy Ashen did, or to do the quests and memorize everything, which, I have the memory of a guppy, so that doesn't work for me.
There's Wikipedia. A lot of the games,
yes,
role players have gone in, even people who just play the games, not just role players, but have gone in and set up Wikipedias for most of the MMOs. Mm-hmm. So,
and then of course, like in Star Wars, they null and voided.
Google is your friend.
Yes.
Yeah, Google is your friend.
Google. But so much of the time, yeah.
Yeah, and
I think we did really well today.
Yeah. And so like I was saying, so we're gonna come up with other episodes. We're gonna basically continue on this trek of going through what your role play experience would be like. So obviously, character you can't role play without a character. So we did character creation first after our introduction, which was horrible last week. So next we'll go kind of the next step, which is, what do you do? Do you level up, like she was saying, level up to 60? Some people are comfortable with, boom, I'm level 1, and that kind of thing. And we'll go with how to start getting into role play with other people.
Where to approach them, how to approach them. Yeah,
maybe if
you jump on them. The first one you see, you jump on them.
Yeah. As happens with poor Sib when she gets to random tell, and then she doesn't log in for 2 days, and the person that she's talked with all of for an hour and has never even talked to or RP'd with is like, I missed you. Okay, Carrie.
I just chalk it up to being a very nice person. I just can't.
You are a very nice person.
She makes characters with very trusting faces.
Mm-hmm.
I make characters that look like they pull up in a windowless van and nobody talks to them.
You do.
It's not my fault. They're cool.
With scars and wrinkle faces. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to be as old as I am,
it's so sad in Final Fantasy, Jazz. They're already starting to call him the old man again.
Yeah.
My
character's 31 years.
31, and
I went from a 1,000-year-old dark elf to a 31-year-old Hur, and now I'm the old man.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. Or there, as Circe says in the chat, hello, Circe. Do an episode on role-playing your character's abilities. That's one as well. What kind of things that we can do or you can do, and it's maybe too powerful and too much. So we've got a lot of things to hit. We're gonna do them one episode at a time, because that's just kind of like how you pull on your pants, one episode at a time.
One leg at a time.
The only way they can find out what the next episode is for sure gonna be is to tune in.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, because
I'll see you next time.
We really don't know. So as we're gonna go out here, make sure if you're on listening to us on what's that thing called that people are listening to us? Oh yeah, Twitch. Listen to us on Twitch. Subscribe, like, whatever that is. We're also on a Facebook page, and I actually forgot to mention this. The podcast is now available on both iTunes and Google Play. We are officially on things that other people can listen to us on. Yes, the two big ones. So you can do them by just searching RPMMORadio. We don't have subscribers or anything on there yet, as far as I know. Just like and subscribe on those. On iTunes, if you want to leave us a comment, it would help, because that will the more comments, good or bad, I'll forgive you for either one. Better be good.
He won't. He holds a grudge.
I will hold a grudge, and I will find you. What's that? Tommy Boy, I know where you live, and I've seen where you sleep, and so help me, your mother will cry when she sees what I've done to you. So, and like us there, facebook.com/RPMMORadio, or at Twitter at RPMMORadio. You're kind of probably seeing a pattern here.
Yeah.
Don't forget to give the shout out for the gentleman that did our intro tune.
Oh, I do that at the very end. Yes, okay, that will be Husky by the Geek. But yes, don't worry, I've got that pre-recorded. So
I just like that. Husky by the Geek.
All right. Well, so you guys at least got any last words to say?
Nope.
Then goodbye.
Come back next week.
All
or
right.
2 weeks from now.
All right.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
So, well, okay then. That'll do it. Just tune in next week when we'll go over halflings and why horrible people would RP them next time on RPMMO Radio.
Bye.
Later.
The thoughts and opinions expressed by RPMMO Radio are just that, and should not be taken as the gospel truth, but pretty close to it. Music provided by Husky by the Geek. Visit him at youtube.com/HuskyByTheGeek to hear all his great rock covers.